Hugh Grant traps 2 hot Mormon missionary babes into his gothic dungeon of a house in order to fuck with their heads and question their faith in director Scott Beck and Brian Wood's hit-and-miss horror, Heretic. Well, talk about casting against type. Heretic stars everyone's favorite charming goofball Englishman Hugh Grant as a bespectacled cardigan-wearing creep intent on trashing the religious beliefs of 2 young female missionaries who pay Grant's Mr. Reed a visit one dark and stormy night to proselytize the virtues of Mormonism. Unfortunately, the missionaries, played by Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East, feel not so much like actual sisters in the Mormon Church, but Hollywoodized, prettier, spunkier versions straight out of Central Casting. So, trapped against their will in Mr. Reed's quaint little house with its serial killer chic furnishings, our 2 heroines become ensnared in a theological game of cat and mouse that will brutally challenge their beliefs while they fight for their very survival. And this idea is really where the story soars. I mean, it's an original and provocative premise. How really sure are you about this God you claim to follow? And exactly how confident are you that your particular brand of organized religion has it right? In what is probably the film's best moment, Mr. Reed compares various religions to the many iterations of the board game Monopoly. Now, essentially, just a game whose central premise was totally ripped off from a much lesser-known board game, and whose popularity has much more to do with advertising than anything remotely original about it. And the parallel here is that Mr. Reed looks at his 2 guests as little more than salespeople, peddling a religion that is little more than a hodgepodge of spiritual ideas pilfered from older, forgotten biblical texts. Now, if only the rest of the film could have been so thoughtfully conceived, well, we might actually have a pretty damn good film here. But sadly, this is where premise and execution part ways, as Heretic sticks the landing about as well as a gymnast named Loretta. Now, there's such a palpable level of mainstream Hollywood hokum here, like right from the get-go, that it really just deadens and lowers the whole affair into a kind of Blumhouse mediocrity. Too bad. Whether it's the opening with brewing storm clouds and cliched rumbling thunder, or a house that looks like Jeffrey Dahmer was hired as its interior designer, or the forced candlelit camera angles of Hugh Grant's leering face, Heretic commits the all-too-common mistake of being overly aware of the genre in which it exists. Now, when you think about it, some of the very best horror films don't behave like horror films when they start out. Alien is just a story about a crew of ordinary blue-collar ship workers, and not much really happens for the first 40 minutes. But we completely buy into the reality of this world. The Exorcist is essentially a contemporary drama about a single mom struggling to do her best for a daughter with emotional problems. Now, these films take their time. We buy in and become immersed in these worlds before having the rug completely pulled out from under us. Heretic is, on the other hand, so jammed with stereotypical horror tropes that it just comes off as cheap and cliched. It's like the writers ran out of ideas after blowing their creative load on the central premise. So we have to settle for god-awful plot contrivances, an over-reliance on coincidence, a character who is ditzy when the plot needs her to be, then later has the mental acumen of Sherlock Holmes, and yes, we even get a character deciding to put herself at total risk by climbing down into a dark tunnel where she's pretty sure there's going to be a dead body there. Now, why would she do this? Because the fucking weak-ass plot needs her to. The only other thing of note here is the performance, of course, of Hugh Grant. Now, it's nothing we haven't seen before, in this case an actor known for playing charming, foppish characters in bad romantic comedies, now donning the villain hat. Now, he's actually not bad. It's certainly the showiest of the performances in this film, but again, this should have been a case of less is more. Extreme camera angles and spooky candle lighting just makes him come off as cartoonish. Too bad. Heretic had the potential to be something really special. Heretic can be seen currently in a local theater and gets an acid test rating of lumpy, uneven shit. batters all.